I will, okay,
Okay.
but I will rotate the laptop in order you could see our students.
Oh, excellent. Excellent. Hello. Good evening, everyone. Nice to have you with us. I hope our presentation will be of good value for you, knowing about Egypt and its background, its history, its society and culture, as this is the focus of our work with Professor. I will share my screen and start the presentation now. Uh, is the presentation clear?
Funny.
Yes.
Okay. Uh, I'm trying to. Yes, I think that's much better. Okay. I think you have an idea about the global signature course. We have been doing this with many universities that are powered by Arizona State University in different countries, and it's very useful and beneficial in knowing about different cultures and different places and different societies. So I think you will also find it useful as our students did. This course is part of a course that I teach here at Galala University. It's called Architecture, Society, and Culture. So we look at architecture from a broader point of view, not only from the view of material and spaces and forms, but we look at it as a product of society and culture at the same time. So, in order to understand this, we have to also think about geography, our location, our resources, our neighbors. We also have to think about our history, the different periods of history that we went through, and how they are affecting our present time and will continue to affect our future. Uh, Before I start, I will start with a brief introduction. The main presentation was produced by our students during the past 4 weeks. They were assigned to do research about certain eras or decades of history of Egypt and to be presented to you. So most of the presentation is done by the students. I only put it together and added some parts that I thought you need also to know about. Um, to start with, the world that we live in today is not the same that was in the past. In the past, the world was very limited. It was only centered around the Mediterranean Sea, as you and us are part of. The Nothing existed outside this that was of main concern to the to this region in India or China or America. It was not part of our concerns. While we are concerned about the Mediterranean Sea, it was considered like a lake that we are living around. Uh, Most of the civilizations were centered around this part in Egypt, in Baghdad, in Iraq, in Syria, in Rome, in Athens, in Greece, in Tunisia, in Spain. Most of these places were the major areas of civilization and production of goods and grains. Uh, when the world started to get bigger a little bit, and Asia and Africa became also involved in the making of events. Egypt found itself in the middle point between Europe in the north, Asia in the west, and Africa in the south and east. So this location was a blessing and also was a problem because everyone wanted to control this part of the world because it's connecting it to different parts of the world, and also it provided good source of agriculture, of food, of wealth throughout the history. As you know, Egypt is a completely desert, and only a source of water is the Nile River that comes from Central Africa, Ethiopia, and Somalia, and goes through Sudan, and then goes through the desert of Egypt to create a green line crossing this desert all the way to the delta, or this triangle on the top that is a very fertile part of land producing crops, producing livestock, everything, and of course comes with commerce. So the Egypt is actually made of these two elements: the line of the Nile that has very narrow sides of green agriculture, going north towards the Mediterranean and creating this big triangle in the north that is a fertile area of production. So when we look at Egypt in an abstract way, we find that this black line is the Nile going north towards the delta, the fertile delta that is overlooking the Mediterranean Sea. On one side, there is Alexandria, and on the other side, there is Port Said. And the intersection between the line and the triangle, this is the most important point in Egypt that was always the control of Egypt. This is Cairo. Cairo is located here at the intersection of the line of the Nile and the delta, and it created this strong point to control and enter and control the whole area of Egypt. This was understood by the ancient Egyptians, who created the key of life that imitates the shape of the Nile, the delta, and the location of Cairo. So this symbol is not only a hieroglyphic symbol, it is a symbol of the geography and history of Egypt. So when we look at Cairo, we find that Cairo is located between the Nile and a mountain. This is the only mountain that is found in this area. It's called Al Mukattam, means the broken mountain. It has several pieces of mountain pieces, huge areas. And this part provides a very bottleneck, a very narrow area to cross. And anyone who's coming from the Mediterranean or the Palestine area, they have to go through this narrow part in order to go to Upper Egypt. So if you control this point, you are controlling the whole country. So that's why this point became the genius point to make as a capital of the whole country. So as we see the mountain to the right, and the Nile is the blue line, and the red dot. This is where Cairo is located. The rest is uh, green areas or green fields or desert lands. So Cairo started not overlooking the Nile. Cairo started near the mountain. It is protected by the mountain and started to grow down from the mountain towards the Nile, not from the Nile towards the mountain. And started to grow north and east as expected and west to create the greater Cairo region. Now I will turn to our students' presentations, and they were divided into groups. Each group focused on an era of the development and history of Egypt. One group focused on the ancient Egyptians, um, and one for on the Roman, Ptolemy and Byzantine era, another one on the Islamic and Ottoman era, and then the era of Muhammad Ali and his sons, Khedewis. This was an important turning point or period in the history of Egypt. And then the modern and contemporary part. So I divided the students into 5 groups, and each one developed a presentation about this era. So we'll start with the ancient Egyptian civilization. You will find to the left here the names of the students, Muhammad, Osama, Omar, and they presented Egypt as it was during the ancient Egyptians. Of course, Egypt was mainly in the northern part, as we talked, and the upper Egypt was an important area for control when the northern part was attacked or occupied by foreign forces. And the Egyptians actually had something like the Suez Canal in their time, but it was connecting the Nile with the Red Sea directly, because they depended very much on trade with Africa, and they wanted to create this link to get the stuff from Egypt to Somalia and Ethiopia and the rest of Africa. As we said, from ancient time, the Nile was the only source of life in Egypt, the only source of water. So everything happened beside the line on the banks of the Nile, affected by its natural environment, its amount of water, and dangers, because when it floods every year, it covers the whole land with mud and water. So the Egyptians understood the ancient Egyptians understood the importance of the Nile and how to respect it and how to manage it towards their benefit. They used the available materials. The materials of construction were usually limestone or sandstone, and also some of them used mud brick. Hard stones were used for the temples and pyramids and rulers' palaces. Mud brick was used by the farmers, the poor people. That's why all what is remaining today of the ancient Egyptian civilization are temples and pyramids, but no houses. We cannot find any houses of farmers or workers. They were all made of mud and were easily uh, reused or destroyed by natural forces. So the difference between the environments made by the lay people and the rulers were obvious. One is made by mud brick with poor materials, and one is made for the rulers and the pharaohs using stone and formal and monumental architecture. And this is what is remaining, and this is what we see around. But most of all the ancient Egyptian villages disappeared. So the temples were a representation of the importance of the religion in the society of Egypt, how it controlled the economy, how it controlled the politics, the appointment of the pharaoh. Everything was managed by the religion viewpoints and the people working on it. Also the ancient Egyptians believed in the afterlife and that the person will be judged in the afterlife with a very sensitive balance between the heart and a feather. And depending on his good deeds and good work, he can go to heaven, or if he's doing bad things, he will go to hell. So they believed in the afterlife and the judgment, and they believed that their kings should remain intact, and because they will be judged with their bodies. That's why they had this mummification and burial grounds, the tombs in Luxor, and that where they protect these mummies in order to find them in the afterlife. Of course, this also affected their art and the interior design and colors and drawings, because everything was revolving around this issue of the afterlife. Architecture, as we said, was representing power and authority and kingship, and it also symbolized the stability of the country and the control. So it was not only a shelter to live in, it was a representation and carried important meaning for the locals and the foreigners as well. This is still part of our culture today. Some architects use ancient Egyptian architecture as source of inspiration. For example, this is the high court in Egypt. It is made in the 1995, and the architect used ancient Egyptian elements to recreate or reflect the authority, the power, the stability of the content of the building. Of course, you all heard about the opening of the Grand Egyptian Museum last week. It was in the 1st of November. It was a magnificent event and celebration. This is the largest. This is the largest museum that hosts one civilization. It only displays ancient Egyptian civilization, and it has the whole collection of King Tut tomb. And it's an amazing building and structure oriented towards the pyramids. Okay, the next stage that came to Egypt after the Alexander the Great occupied Egypt and the East. He left his lieutenant Ptolemy to control the area. So it created what they call a Ptolemaic kingdom. He started the Ptolemaic kingdom that, of course, its last queen was Cleopatra, that we all hear about. Cleopatra, Cleopatra had connections with Rome because Rome wanted to occupy Egypt because it was the main source of grains in the area. And you all know the history of Cleopatra and Antonio and Caesar and all this story that we see in the movies and everywhere. Uh, and of course, Egypt became part of the Roman Empire. And then when Rome in the 300 something after Constantine turned to Christianity, Egypt also became a Christian part of this Christian with the Roman. But there was a problem in understanding the some theological issues. So actually, Egypt had its own version of Christianity that is called Coptic. The Egyptian Christians are called Coptic, and they have their own church, their own pope. They don't relate to the Catholicism nor the Orthodox of the Russian church. So they started to have their own separation between the Catholic and the Orthodox and the Coptic church. Of course, this background was not too long. It was brief, relevant to the ancient Egyptian history, and it lasted only until the introduction of Islam in the year 600. But the main outcome was the establishment of Alexandria, and Egypt became more connected to the Mediterranean than Africa as it was in the past. So the establishment of Alexandria as a major port connecting Egypt to Europe. And the years around the year 600, the Islam came to Egypt with the conquest of Islam from Arabia, and it started to spread uh, from Mecca and Medina all the way to Egypt, to Morocco, to Spain in the west, and also to the east and north, all the way to Europe and to the west to India. So this spread of Islam brought to Egypt new forms of culture and architecture in the form of mosques, um, materials, decorations. Of course, in Islam, people are not allowed to use human figures. So the decorations depended on plants and animals and no animals, plants and graphic and patterns, Islamic patterns. They were not allowed to use any living features. So in Islam, of course, the city was organized around the mosque as the center of the religion, and the souks, the places of commerce and exchange, and protected by the narrow streets, depending on the climate. In 969, the Fatimid came to Egypt and they established a capital. They called it Cairo. This is when Cairo came to existence. It was called Al-Qahira, Cairo in Arabic means Al-Qahira, means the place that can never be occupied or conquered. And it became the basic capital of the Fatimid era. And it was surrounded by a wall from all sides. And as you see, it is near the mountain of Al Muqattam. It's not on the Nile. It's still far from the Nile because all this area was covered by water during the flooding season. So they cannot build on it. They have to build a higher ground near the mountain. Of course, the mosque was always at the center of the community. So every community had its own mosque and souk and places of work. And the religion was also the politics and the management of the people. The Fatimid lasted for about 200 years, and they had great architecture built in Cairo that is surviving till today, and it's important part of also our tradition and historical buildings. An important element was the courtyard house. Most of the houses were close together inside the walls of the city, but they had beautiful courtyards in the middle with mashrabiyas. These are extruded windows made of wood, and these windows allow the people inside to see the outside without the outside see who's inside. So it provided privacy, it provided air, it provided light, controlled light and air, and it was a beautiful environment. And the courtyard provided also privacy and natural connection to the natural environment. They also use the bent entrance, so you cannot enter the house directly from the street. You have to make a turn to enter to the courtyard. Of course, the mosques were also important. They also absorbed the Roman, Persian, Byzantine ideas of domes and columns, capitals. If you go to old mosques, you might find some column capitals came from ancient Egyptian or Byzantine or Roman columns. Became a mix of materials and characters. And then, of course, the religion became an education. We had the first University of Al Azhar that started in the year 1000. It started as a university teaching not only Islamic thoughts, but also other types of information and knowledge. And after the Fatimid came the Mamluk era, also continuing the legend of the foreigners controlling Egypt. And lastly came the Ottomans. The Ottomans were, of course, replaced the Mamluks and controlled Egypt approximately 400 years since the Mamluk era to Muhammad Ali era. Muhammad Ali was started as a revolutionary against the French and the British occupation. He's, of course, was brought to Egypt by the Ottomans, an Albanian, with an Albanian troop. And after the occupation of Egypt by the French, Napoleon Bonaparte, and the British, he became a symbol for a revolution against them, and the Egyptians elected him to be a ruler of Egypt. Started his dynasty from 1800 to control Egypt with his family. He made a big change in Egypt. He started industries of ships, especially in Alexandria. He established hospital system. He established schools. He established the army. There was no Egyptian army any since the ancient Egyptians. We were always occupied by foreigners. Since the Alexander the Great, Egypt didn't have any local army. For 2,000 years, we were occupied by foreigners all the time. So Muhammad Ali changed this and started an Egyptian army, Egyptian industry, Egyptian hospital system, education system. So it was a big change. And also, one of his important elements is the control of the Nile. He built several dams that controlled the Nile and made the Egyptians be able to expand along its shores. He also built palaces overlooking the Nile and railway stations. He also established the railway system in Egypt connecting Alexandria and Cairo and Upper Egypt. And of course, this created a huge difference in the country and its people. Then his sons came. Most important was Khedive Ismail, who was educated in Paris all his time, and when he returned to Egypt, he wanted to transform Cairo to another Paris in the east. So he brought the architects and the planners and the designers from Paris, and they built a new downtown imitating the Paris, and he built palaces imitating the Versailles, and he wanted to make Cairo another copy of Cairo. Of course, during the opening of the Suez Canal, he invited all the kings and queens of Europe, and he built an opera specially for them to deliver the opera. He also built roads connecting the city to the pyramids. He actually copied Paris exactly into downtown Cairo with its buildings and roundabouts and everything. So when you see two pictures of the two cities, they are almost typical architecture. Um, and so it was a very vibrant time in the Egyptian society to control the Nile, to create transportation systems, railways, and so forth. And so Cairo started to grow to the banks of the Nile and create new areas for agriculture. In the early 1900s, we had a interest in building tramways by the Baron Ambang, a Belgium, who brought his company to build a place called Heliopolis or New Cairo, away from the city towards the desert, connected by a tramway. And he was very successful, and this model was repeated in many parts of Egypt after that. He used architecture and decorations that are eclectic between the Arab and the European and the modern architecture. It was very useful and important for the Egyptians, and it is still an important character of New Cairo until now. Uh, And of course, uh, the sons of Muhammad Ali after the Khedives, the kings started to rule Egypt, and the first of modern formal university was established in 1925. It was called Cairo University, a new central bank, and many important issues. But this also created two societies, the poor and the rich, which created a sense of inequality that actually took Egypt to a new era of a revolution to change that situation to a more modern, democratic, and socialist society. So there was the revolution of 1952 that created a new type of architecture and decoration based on modern architecture. And it actually introduced the social housing, the types of new cities and new neighborhoods that are related to equality and equal doing. Of course, we had the 1967 war that was a big defeat for Egypt, but it was followed by a 1973 war where we regained our lost land. So during this era, the political system was inclined towards socialism and equal opportunities and equality. So the types of housing and lands and projects were all directed towards how to provide equality and good life standards for everyone. As I said, we were affected very much by the 67 war and then the 73 war. But after that, we started to have a peace treaty with Israel, and things settled down. We regained our Sinai area. We started a new era with Sadat of open economy. And this actually opened the market for many new projects. We started to build new transportation systems, new houses, new tourism facilities, new types of gated communities and high class housing. And then, as you know, in 2011, we had another revolution that also was trying to correct some problems of the previous regime.